His parents sold everything for drugs.
Basically walked in the house and there was nothing in it.
Then they gave him away.
They called my grandparents that night and said, hey, come get the kids, or we're just dropping them off at the police station.
One young man's road to redemption.
It was just something that I couldn't have done myself.
Plus, Ephraim Graham shares this week's top 5 stories from Studio 5. All that and more on today's 700 Club Interactive. Well, welcome to the show. Here's Ephraim Graham with this week's top 5 trending stories.
At number 5, turning the tables.
I thank Jesus for you every day. I love you. Happy Mother's Day.
When Seattle Seahawks quarterback Russell Wilson shared this Mother's Day message a few years ago.
We surprised you?
You got me. I got surprised. I didn't know you were coming.
This Mother's Day?
Take a look at this moment. He hands his mom the keys to her new dream home.
Are you serious? Are you serious? Are you serious? No.
And these sweet headlines soon followed, after the newly minted highest-paid quarterback in the NFL shared the news on Instagram, writing, "All these years you have never asked me for anything. This one's for you. I love you, Mama."
I hope it's a for real.
At number 4, it's a criminal case that captivated New York City headlines for months in the late 1980s.
Before a white female jogger was beaten and raped in New York Central Park in 1989, they were just 5 teenagers from Harlem: Yusuf Salam, Antron McCrae, Kevin Richardson, Corey Wise, and Raymond Santana.
Their story is now a streaming series.
There is injustice happening here.
There is not one shred of evidence.
Imagine the frenzy of these teenagers. Ripping off her
They
clothes.
are innocent of these crimes.
They are guilty.
Why are you doing us like this?
It's a 4-part series available beginning May 31st.
The men known as the Central Park Five and director Ava DuVernay
I've never seen that 5 of you.
reconnecting in New York at the end of an emotional journey. Together, turning a real story of stolen youth and wrongful conviction into a dramatic Netflix series called When They See Us.
They saw you rape the lady. I didn't see a lady or hit anyone.
At number 3,
There's a lot of things going on in the world. Here's some advice. Call Jesus.
the sisters who've garnered a sizable social media following with their uplifting posts have scored a television series. Danny and Dana Lane will play daughters to SNL star Kenan Thompson.
Come on, raise your voices. Blessings from his hands, blessings to our mouths.
In his new NBC family comedy.
If your boyfriend break up with you, call Jesus. Don't call Tyrone. Call Jesus.
You can catch Danny and Dana on The Kenan Show on NBC this fall.
What are you doing? Who invited you?
At number 2, you might call them the accidental Christian supergroup. Studio 5 sits down with the Newsboys United as the group drops new music and embarks on a new tour with the return of 2 former band members. So, Newsboys United, how long are we united? Peter?
Well,
18 months of counting, Pete?
Yeah, it's been 18 months so far, and we're just about to announce a fall tour. So, yeah, who knows? We've obviously just finished making this record, which was a pleasant surprise. You know, we didn't come into this thinking we're going to make a record. We actually booked a certain amount of shows because if it didn't work, we could all bail.
At number 1, the unforgettable voice of Randy Travis on the stage of the Grand Ole Opry. That's also where Studio 5 caught up with the country music legend, who is still on a long road to recovery following the massive stroke he suffered more than 5 years ago. He's sharing his life story in a new book, Forever and Ever Amen, a memoir of music, faith, and braving the storms of life.
You drop out of school in 8th grade. My favorite story is this, though. You break into a church and have a beer party.
I guess you were thinking God will take us any way he can get us, right?
In his book, Randy shares the story of the moment doctors gave up hope and gave his wife the option of pulling the plug.
He gave me the answer I needed. He squeezed my hand, and we hadn't gotten anything out of him as far as movement or responses for days. So that was huge. It was a turning point. So he squeezed my hand, and I saw a little tear form and fell down the side of his cheek. And so, you know, it was full steam ahead.
Well, for more, here's Ephraim Graham, and we just had Mother's Day. And here's Russell Wilson putting us all to shame.
I know. Those flowers don't look so nice anymore.
You know, the best gift I ever got my mother was a color TV, and that was a long time ago. So.
You beat me. I can't even say I measure up. I talked to my mom, and I got her gift. She hasn't gotten it yet.
Gives her a house.
Yes. He talks about how selfless his mom has always been. He lost his dad. His dad was sick for many years, and mom essentially raised the 3 children on her own, and then would go to the hospital every day just to spend time with dad and to hold his hand as he went to sleep. And he has shared that story, just watching his mom as being a pillar of strength. And he said his dad always said, "You find someone like your mom, and you found
you're gonna be good.
You're good." So Russell Wilson and his wife Sierra presented those keys to her dream house. And if you watch the whole video, she really is dumbfounded. She doesn't believe it. And as you saw, she was surprised when the keys actually opened the door.
I want to know,
and
is the house near them?
They won't say specifically where the location is. I was scouring trying to find out, but I'm sure it's not too far because she has a great relationship with not only him, but his children as well.
You're going to drive to it?
I wouldn't be surprised. I wish I could. I really
don't get a bright idea.
No,
I'm just kidding. Don't do that.
Where it is, and none of that was disclosed.
Let her have
but a great
peace,
yes, indeed. She deserves it.
All right, let's get really serious. Central Park, well, one of the most publicized crimes of the 1980s.
Yes.
And then you have 5 young men who are charged and then convicted. And then they go through the appeal process. And then somebody else finally comes forward who is now serving a life sentence and says, "I'm the guy."
Yeah. And thanks to that and DNA evidence, those
and
not
not
men
just
are
I'm
free.
the guy, but I acted alone.
Yes. Ava DuVernay makes a point to say she wants it to be known that this is not a story about the woman who was attacked. The woman who's attacked doesn't even remember the attack. She's come forward as well and wrote a book identifying herself, but this is not a story about her. It really is about what these young men suffered and what was lost, despite the fact that the government, of course, settled with them. I think it was 2002, maybe.
No, it took.
No, I'm sorry. No,
2012.
Yeah, 2012. There we go. I knew there was a 2 in there.
And there's another court case pending.
You're right. And it's.
And they settled out for $40 million plus. Yeah. There's another one for around 50 that's winding its way through the courts. Yeah. But you still, is it because we just didn't have enough technology to analyze the DNA back in 1989 when they were convicted, or is there? What's the answer here?
I remember this case vividly because I grew up in this area.
We all did.
Yeah, so I grew up in this area of New York, New Jersey, and I was about the same age of these young men, literally fresh out of high school myself. So the case impacted me because I remembered how immediately these young men were described. And for me watching this, I didn't see what the media was saying they were. I didn't see what prosecutors were saying they were. I really saw myself. And I sympathized with them and had, being a child myself, saying, gee, what if they didn't do it? I mean, I've walked Central Park. I've been in Central Park. Same, scenario. And the call was, we want anybody who has been in Central Park that night. They're all suspects. That was the call that came out. And I remember being frightened as a young man myself, thinking, you want everyone? And they were called wolf packs. They were just labeled from the very beginning. So from the start,
the media had a frenzy over it.
Absolutely.
And, essentially they were convicted in the media before they ever got to the court.
Absolutely.
And then to add to it, they all confessed.
Yeah, coerced confessions. But
I understand.
Yes.
But they confessed after police held them and did not let them sleep for 24 hours. No food, no water, no sleep.
Right.
And at the end of that, they said, you know, I know where the Lindbergh baby
Yeah, right.
you know,
Right.
I know where Jimmy Hoffa's buried.
Right. Essentially, I mean, all they wanted to do, think about it, a kid at that age,
Make
by
it
the end of
stop.
all that, all I want to do is, I just wanted to stop. I will
Make it
say
stop.
whatever I need to say. I just want my mom. I just want my mother. And you'll see some of that play out in this series as well.
Is
It's baffling.
this a contributing factor, the economics of the situation?
Absolutely.
That if they had the money to hire a lawyer, that would have never happened to them?
I believe so. I firmly, I almost 100% believe that yes, had they had the finances to get an attorney to seriously take a strong look at their case and be their voice, things would not have ended the way they did. I mean, they had horrible representation. Horrible.
Well, I've got to ask the question. Do you think this kind of thing can still happen today?
Yes.
I mean, here we are.
Yes. Yes, I absolutely.
2019, and you would think 30 years later.
As frightening as that sounds, yes, I do. I do believe that in order to be properly defended in this country and to have your case heard, you need good representation, and it costs. And being a journalist covering local news, have watched, and I know, public defenders. I know the burden that they carry. I know the caseload that they carry. There is no way they could properly defend everyone that they're.
Well, the system is geared so that they don't. The caseload is so severe on both the prosecutor and the defense that everybody's looking to plea bargain.
You got
and
it.
how can I get a guilty plea so my stats don't get bad? And how do I reduce the sentence? And then I'm a public defender, and it's all about how quickly can I resolve the cases.
Absolutely. People in my family have lived that experience, and I've always felt bad for them. That it's like you just want to.
I am a lawyer, and I know the slogan. The slogan is, how much justice can you afford?
You got it.
And if you can afford, then you can, if you're innocent, then you can really go through the process.
Right.
But even when you're innocent, and even when you can't go through the process, and I've known some people that did, and their reputations were tattered. They went to a jury trial and were found by the jury to be innocent.
Right.
But where do you go from there?
Your reputation is ruined.
You're out a couple of $1 million. It's not cheap by any standard, and
you get nothing at the end.
There's nothing at the end.
Nothing. You get nothing at the end. I mean, I as a journalism,
and because of the coverage of it, everybody thinks there's something wrong.
Absolutely.
You know, if you're in court, there's something wrong.
Absolutely. As a journalist, and a journalism instructor, I always told my students, be careful when you're reporting stories because you never get the same audience twice. So you never, I don't care, you're never going to get that same audience twice. So someone is going to walk away believing what you said, even if it was incorrect and you corrected it
and
the next
even
day.
if you retract it, the retraction is going to be on page 10.
Right.
The story's
Right.
on page 1. And, you know, in today's internet world, it's, if you're not in the feed anymore.
You got it.
The retraction
You got
is
it.
never going to make it to the feed.
No. These young men, the 5 of them, said even in the interview just this past week that to this day, that literally when someone recognizes their name or looks at them and recognizes them, they go back to being identified as the Central Park 5, being identified as wolf packs. Oh, you're that one. And
it's over.
It's over, which is it's sad.
Which is why there's
Sad.
another case.
Absolutely.
Because it ruined them.
Yeah, it did. Indeed, it did.
And it's a shame. It's a shame on us. Unfortunately, I don't see a path forward. Do you? I mean, what's the way out of the mess?
I have no clue. I mean, we've been on this road so long. I think we have to begin to, number one, to recognize, I guess, first and foremost, that we have a problem. And I don't think we always believe we do. We do believe largely that justice is fair, and you want to believe that.
As a culture, I think you have to.
Yeah, you want to believe that.
You want to believe that, but at the same time, we have to look at the stats, and the stats are pretty clear. No, there seems to be an inherent bias within the system, and there seems to be inherent bias against the poor.
Absolutely.
And an inherent bias against the poor of a certain skin color.
Absolutely.
And
there's hope in Jesus, thank God.
all right, well, for all the latest, it's not just entertainment news. You're going to get a whole picture of our culture today. You can check out Ephraim's weekly show. It's called Studio 5. You can watch it on the CBN News Channel or online at cbn.com/Studio5. And Ephraim, we'll see you again next week for more, hopefully uplifting stories.
Yes, I promise.
Russell Wilson and what he's doing. Yes. Well, coming up, a young musician remembers his down-and-out childhood.
My mother and father were both, on drugs. She had sold everything for drug money.
Nathan Sheridan shares the inspiration behind his album, Broken With You. You don't want to miss it. It's up next. Nathan Sheridan is a singer whose debut album has been called powerful and moving. It's easy to see why. His songs draw from the story of his life and how he found hope after being abandoned by his drug-addicted parents.
My mother and father were both, on drugs, and me and my sister, we came home from wherever we were that day and basically walked in the house and there was nothing in it. She had sold everything at just a garage sale in one day and sold my father's guitar that he owned and sold our clothes and sold our appliances and things like that. And she had sold everything for drug money.
Nathan Sheridan grew up in a trailer park in the panhandle of Florida.
It was definitely in a bad side of town, and I remember it just being, a very dirty place. Definitely a place where you didn't want to live.
The same night she sold their possessions, Nathan's mother made a phone call.
They called my grandparents that night and said, hey, come get the kids, or we're just dropping them off at the police station.
Although life in his grandparents' home was more stable, Nathan's resentment toward his parents simmered.
It definitely affected me, knowing that as I was growing up, that's how my mother and father treated me. As I got more mature and I started realizing how severe that actually was, it started to make me pretty angry.
The pain of rejection was compounded by devastating news about his sister, Sarah.
It was about a year or two after she fell ill with terminal brain cancer. And that cancer was basically, stage 4. There's nothing that could be done about it. It was just an awful time for our family.
Sarah died, and Nathan's anger morphed into rebellion.
And it was definitely something that sparked that in me, that rebellious stage that I had. And it was due to, a lot of what my parents had done and how they weren't in my life. And I think I was angry about that, even if I didn't want to really admit it. And I didn't want to let those outside things affect me, but really they did.
Nathan never turned to drugs, but lost interest in school and balked at his grandparents' faith.
My grandparents, they raised me in a very Christian household, and I would just disobey, not do my work and school, and get in trouble in class and stuff like that. And I always questioned my purpose a lot, what God's purpose for me was, why things went the way they did, what good could come out of that situation.
When he was a teenager, Nathan saw a play that changed his life.
I went to a play called Heaven's Gates, Hell's Flames. It was just a random night, really. I didn't plan on going to it. It was a youth group event. And of course, my grandparents made me go every Wednesday to church. And it was a play that was very well done. I went there and they just showed me the truth, because in the play it would show good people who had done good things in life, but they would end up going to hell because they never accepted Jesus as their Lord and Savior. And I saw myself in those people. It hit home with me, and it's like, wow, it really is about accepting Jesus as Savior. And I had heard this message over and over and over, but seeing it played out before your eyes and seeing there really is two choices in life. So that night I just had to make the decision. I didn't want to leave there without making that decision.
That night, Nathan prayed to receive Christ.
I knew that I wanted something different for my life. I knew I wanted to be close to God, and I wanted to go to heaven. Right after the play, they did an altar call, and I was super shy and I was super withdrawn. I just against everything in me, I just went up front and I just did it. And I prayed with somebody, for salvation. For me, I still had to grow. I still was going through some rebellion and stuff like that, but I think it definitely brought some healing to my life for sure. It was something that I could find peace in.
Soon after that, Nathan learned to play guitar and began writing songs.
I was really starting to fall in love with music at this point, and I kind of discovered a dream for music, but I never quite believed that I could actually do music, full time.
He moved to Nashville to pursue his music career, and doors began opening right away.
It's definitely a God thing. I call it a divine orchestration. It was just something that I couldn't have done myself.
Today, Nathan is married to Harley and recently released his first CD, Broken With You.
And I don't know what to do with all this anger.
Finally putting the words down to the paper and really describing how I felt in the past was a way of letting things go.
Nathan has forgiven his parents and is eager to use his music and his life to draw people to Christ.
I don't have any ill will or any unforgiveness towards that. I'm past that, I have Jesus in my life, and I have my wife, and I have my career, and I have my grandparents, and I'm fine with that. I just wanted to use that story as a way to tell other people that, hey, it doesn't matter where you've been, where you're going, where you're at right now, God is with you through the entire thing, and He's never left your side.
Listen to what Nathan says. It doesn't matter where you've been. It doesn't matter what's happened to you. For Nathan, he's speaking from experience, and what happened to him should never happen to any child. That your parents say, well, we love drugs, and we want to use drugs more than we want to be with you. And so they make a phone call that either you take the kids or we're going to drop them off at a police station. That should never happen to a child. It was definitely not God's plan for Nathan. But what do you do with that? And what do you do with that sense of rejection? What do you do with that sense of anger, that it's not fair? And where do you go? Well, for Nathan, he started down a road of rebellion. He started to say, well, if this is, my lot in life, then I don't want it. I want to escape. I don't want to do anything in school. What's the purpose of my life? If my parents want to throw me away, what good is it? And he starts thinking that way. And then he comes face to face with a reality, and it's a reality we all have to come face to face with. What do you think about Jesus? Where does he stand in your life? What is he to you? And then the most important question, who is he? And if you come to the answer that he is the Savior, he is the Messiah, he is the one come to change everything. He is the one who divides BC from AD. He is the one that can change you and change your circumstance. And for Nathan, when he realized that and chose Jesus, it made all the difference in his life. And instead of being rejected by family, he found family. He found a wife, he found a relationship, he found love, he found a hope, he found a future, he found a purpose. You can find the same thing. All you have to do is reach out to him. And here's the simple prayer. Maybe you don't believe he exists. Maybe you're wondering, is he really a Messiah? Is he really the one? Well, here's the prayer for you. Jesus, if you're real, could you show me? Could you show up for me? And if you pray that with all of your heart, he'll answer. He is able to turn you around. If you want help with this prayer, we're here for you. All you have to do is pick up the phone and call us, 1-800-700-7000. There'll be somebody on the other end of that line that's more than willing to pray for you. All you have to do is say, I need to find Jesus, and I need to find him today. Well, Anita is a 6-year-old who gets sick all the time, and so does her younger brother. That's because these children and everyone else in their village are forced to drink polluted water.
From a distance, the pond water near this village in Ukraine appears to be clean. But get a little closer and you'll see trash and dirty diapers. This is where children play and bathe and where their parents get water to wash clothes and dishes. Just a few feet away is a shallow well, just 9 feet deep. It's the village's only source of drinking water. This is 6-year-old Anita.
Because of this water, we got sick all the time.
The shallow well is polluted and filled with bacteria.
Water is really our greatest need. I need it to wash my children, to cook with, and to drink.
I always pray that God would give us clean water to drink.
So CBN dug a well for Anita and the community, and soon there was cold, clean water for everyone to drink.
Our whole family drinks, and everyone who wants comes and drinks this water.
Now I live in a clean house, wear clean clothes, and drink clean water. Thank you, CBN, for the cold, delicious water.
You and I take water for granted, but in many places around the world, people don't have fresh water. They don't have access to water. They have to walk for miles to get water. Getting water and having water for their family consumes hours out of every single day. And then the water they can get, they can't trust. Is this water going to make me sick? Is it dirty? Is it polluted? But there's some good news. We're doing water wells, and we're doing them around the world to help people. And it comes out of my personal experience in a village in India more than 25 years ago, where I realized just how hard it was and how can we make a difference. At that point in time, I was told there are 144,000 villages in India that don't have access to water. And then I found out how big of a problem this is around the world. So we started to make a difference. Have we done 144,000? No, but we've done around 18,000. And it's all because people like you care enough to give, to say, yes, I want to be a part of it. If that's you, you can make a designated gift to our water fund. Just go to cbn.com. There's a place on the giving page where you can designate it, or you can call us and say, I want to give to water wells. Either way, do it now. 1-800-700-7000. Here's a word from John chapter 5. Who is the one who overcomes the world but he who believes that Jesus is the Son of God? Who is Jesus to you? Let that be the question for you. He is the Son of God.